One more second and we'll. Yeah, right. Thank God it's Friday. Somebody is saying there. Could not agree more. Okay, so now we are recording, we are broadcasting. We've got about 150 people attending so far. A lot of people joining in. Thank you so much for being here on a Friday morning. As I was saying before, data futurology wouldn't be possible without our sponsors. Our main sponsor is Rubix. Rubix is a specialist consulting company working all over Australia, doing amazing work in the data space. I've worked with them for a long time, highly recommend them. And if you need to get in touch, email Dylan at wearerubix, Rubix with an X at the end, Dylan at wearerubix.com. From any conversation with Dylan, you'll walk away enlightened, and you would have had, you walk away wiser, and you have a lot of laughs. So I highly recommend reaching out. Navida is asking where they can find the recording of the webinar. We're recording now. It's going to go on the website, and it's going on YouTube live at the moment, and the video will stay in our YouTube channel. Also in data futurology, we started a Telegram group. So we will put we'll share the link, and if people are keen to join the Telegram group, obviously jump in. Lots of news, lots of activities being shared there every day, and it's coming up to be a really nice community. Highly recommend it. Check out our Telegram group. And then on a separate note, if you have any requests for topics for future webinars, if there's anything that you want to know about, let us know in the chat. In the comment section below on YouTube, and we'll make sure that we cover those topics. We've been getting some requests after our last webinar. We've been getting requests to do a webinar on causal inference. So that's coming up in about 5 weeks. So end of August, we have the head of experiments and causal impacts from eBay coming on board to talk to us about that, and looking forward to having probably a few more people in different webinars talking about causal impact and causal inference, which will be super interesting. On other news, we recently launched data futurology in Spanish. So it's called Data Futurology en Español. Spanish is my native tongue, and so I'm super excited to launch that. If you know any people that speak Spanish, do share with them. We're going to publish the first few episodes in Spanish. We're going to publish them in the Data Futurology English channel, only the first few to give it some visibility, and then we're also going to start a separate channel called Data Futurology en Español. We got an hola from Dylan. I love it. And so we did our first webinar on that this week. We had a lot of people from all over Latin America, people from Spain, and also people in other countries that are originally from Latin America. So really nice. For our next Spanish-speaking webinar is with Alejandro Betancourt, and he is the general manager for Landing AI. And for the people who don't know, Landing AI is a company from Andrew Ng that he started to help do AI for corporates, essentially. So Alejandro, obviously, highly qualified. That's going to be very interesting. And I am talking to him to bring him back to do an episode in English as well. So stay tuned. And besides that, a lot of people found out about this webinar through Data Science Melbourne. Obviously, our partnership with Data Science Melbourne is incredible. And Data Science Melbourne at the moment is looking to put together the Datathon. So every year, Data Science Melbourne does a Datathon, where generally we get a company to sponsor the Datathon, so to offer prize money, offer a data set and a problem for people to solve. And in the past, we've had 600 teams of people competing, learning, experimenting. And the idea is that we want to foster the community, we want to lower the barriers to entry, and we encourage people who are new to the field to try their hand at this problem for the first time. Obviously, students, experienced people are very welcome as well. Generally, there's different categories. There's a prediction side, an insight side, and it's a lot of fun to get involved and be part of the community, and for all of us to lift the learnings, all of our learnings. So at the moment, the Datathon is being organized, hopefully to happen later this year, but we need your help. We need to find sponsors for the prize money and the data. So if you're a company that has a data set that is keen to help the community and get some real problems solved in return, then get in touch either with Phil Briley through the Data Science Melbourne meetup. Get in touch with myself. Would be really happy to help. And definitely, yeah, we're looking for people to help us foster the community. Definitely a big area of what we want to do. And I see Phil Briley. Morning, Phil. He posted the link to the Datathon of what's happened in the previous years, so you can see all the fun that it's had for I think 4 years in a row now, maybe either 4 or 5. So that'll be really great. And Phil's putting the meetup event as well. We're waiting for Elisa, who has some technical issues. In the meantime, for the people that obviously AFL is a religion at least in Victoria, popular obviously all over Australia and in other parts of the world as well. So we got people dialing in, tuning in from everywhere. Oh, Elisa is here. Great. I will get you your video on. And let me see. So, Elisa, you should be able to start your video. Great. Great. Thank you for persevering.
Oh, absolutely. Of all the days for tech to not work, of course, it's the day I'm on a webinar. Yeah.
It's all good. Thank you so much for persevering. And Elisa, obviously, you are quite popular. Your subject matter is quite popular. Keen to get into your origin story, how you got to where you are, what you're doing today. But obviously, in preparation for the webinar, I do a bit of research on the guests and looking at your background. So impressive. So you worked in Citigroup. You were senior manager of global intelligence at Avon. You worked at Quantium and LinkedIn. You were head of data analytics and insights at Admire, and now almost a year as head of data science and head of data and analytics at the AFL. How's that journey been for you?
Oh, geez, you just made me feel really old. That's a lot of experience right there.
I think that's a lot of gold to share.
No, thank you for that. And by the way, Felipe, I'm a huge fan. I was in the audience listening to your intro, and I love what you're doing with data futurology in Espanol. I spent almost 10 years working pretty much in Latin America. So,
amazing.
Hola, buenos dias, ¿cómo estás?
Yes, so that is great.
Absolutely. So maybe we could do this exact webcast in Spanish so I could practice.
That would be great. All right, done. We'll book it in. Thank you so much for that. That is so exciting. Thank you. How did you end up working in Latin America?
Yeah, so probably the stint, my longest stint was actually at Avon Cosmetics.
Mm-hmm.
So they were in Australia, but unfortunately has left the country. But in markets, as I'm sure you know, like Latin American markets and Central Eastern European markets, Avon is still huge, and that's the primary way in which women purchase cosmetics.
Yeah.
So I worked with them for 10 years on their marketing analytics projects for Latin America. So I spent a lot of time in Brazil and Argentina and Colombia and Venezuela. And I tell people that if I were born again, I would be born again as a Brazilian woman because they know how to live life.
Right? They know how to live life. I could not agree more. Oh, that's amazing. And you were obviously quite senior during your time in Avon. Quite early on in your career as well, got to a very senior position. Shows your ability to deliver, your ability to set vision. That's amazing. How do you feel that time set you up for what came next?
Yeah, so funny. So to your point, my experience at Avon was really early on in my career. So I kind of started out in finance, accounting, investment banking. So I thought that was going to be my career track, but I just wasn't my jam. So I always loved working with data, but once I moved into the world of data linked to customer behavior, that's when it really came to life for me. And I loved it. So my experience at Avon was actually my first introduction into marketing analytics. And way back then, marketing analytics wasn't really a thing. There was market research, there was market intelligence, you had kind of data analysts, but people weren't really talking analytics, people weren't talking predictive modeling. So who was my boss at the time came from Kraft. And if you look at kind of CPG, FMCG companies in the US, that's where they really pioneered a lot of these predictive methodologies used in companies today. So I was lucky enough to kind of go under his wing, and he introduced me to this whole world of analytics. And when I figured out that you can use data to actually try to predict what's going to happen in the future, that blew my mind. It absolutely blew my mind. And you kind of learn about it in stats in school, but it's not the same. So I got hooked. I worked on my first marketing mix model. We looked at ROIs of different advertising investments, and decisions were actually made on this data. So it was an incredible experience. And you know what, from that time, and again, because I was so junior, I was very nervous and scared. I was like, this is an area that I know nothing about, but I know that if I apply myself and I'm curious enough, I can figure it out.
Yes.
And I've kind of taken that perseverance throughout with me in my career. And if I run into a topic area or a project or anything that I don't know a lot about, I'm going to figure it out. Ask questions, be curious, do your research, and figure it out.
I love it. I love it. Where having that confidence and being able to back yourself is so important. Where do you think that came from for you?
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm going to be totally honest. That whole idea of kind of imposter syndrome, which, I think a lot of women, especially in this space, deal with. It's something that you need to kind of recognize for yourself and know that, you know what, I feel like I'm an imposter in this area, but actually I know a lot more than I think. And actually I know a lot more than the guy sitting next to me.
Yeah.
But I have to be honest, it took me, a long part of my career to kind of get over it. But man, once you get over that, you fly. You absolutely fly.
And do you think that in a way, what helped you get over it? Did you have to maybe be kinder to yourself and say I feel I may not know, I can find out. I do know a lot. Was there a change in mindset for you? Was there anything in particular or an add-on of a few things that helped you get over it?
Yeah, I mean, there were some proactive bits, which was always trying to ask for feedback. So I know people do it and they try to do it maybe at your end of your review, but to really make it a habit of always asking feedback and not being nervous about receiving feedback. Because the feedback could be bad or constructive, but you know what, most of the time, probably 90% of the time, the feedback is going to be good.
Yes.
and embrace that feedback. So that was kind of one really proactive thing I did. Call it age or life experiences, but just personally, a lot of things have happened in my life where, you know, life is too short to be living in worry or thinking that you're not good enough. So man, once you can kind of get over that, it's pretty liberating.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, totally. Like, life is to be enjoyed. Don't hold yourself back. That's amazing. And how was your journey to getting to the AFL? Between your time at Avon, obviously a lot happened until your time at AFL. Can you give us a quick overview of your time in between?
Yeah, absolutely. So all my time at Avon was spent in the US. And kind of after my 10 years there, I thought, you know what, let's get an MBA. I'd like to say that I had good intentions of mind of gaining knowledge and becoming more worldly, but honestly, I just kind of needed a break, and that's kind of why people get an MBA sometimes. So I did that.
Thanks for the honesty.
Oh, totally. And the program that I was on was incredible because that whole getting just international experience and viewpoints was so important for me. So the program that I did was between Columbia Business School in New York and London Business School in London. And I was working full time. So it was pretty incredible. Every other month I traveled either to New York or to London and went to school for a week with people from around the world.
Wow.
The best was I had a classmate who was traveling from northern Russia. Like literally it took him 2 full days to travel to class.
Wow.
And yeah, so it was just such an incredible experience. And for those who are considering an MBA, absolutely the knowledge that you'll gain is incredible, but just that network that you'll build, which I still continue to leverage today, has been amazing.
Oh,
so anyway, did my MBA.
That's incredible, because as soon as you said you did your MBA, that was the first question that popped up, whether you recommend it. So great to hear that you do. Sorry to interrupt. So after the MBA?
Yeah, so after the MBA, I met my Aussie husband. So at the time,
right.
So this was in 2004, and I'll tell this audience that I probably don't know any of you, but I'll tell you this story. It's not the story I tell my children, but I met him in a club in New York, and I heard his Aussie accent, and I gotta say, for all the Aussies on the phone, that Americans love the Aussie accent. And so I just gravitated towards him, and that was gosh, that was 16 years ago, a marriage and 2 children. So
amazing. It all starts with the accent.
I'm telling you, Felipe.
I love it.
And so I met him, and you know, I was living in New York City at the time, and most people living in Manhattan, when you run out of room in your small studio apartment, most people either move to like Brooklyn, but like people are now priced out of Brooklyn, so then people move to New Jersey. And I was like, do I want to move to New Jersey or move to Australia? I think Australia sounds a bit more exciting than New Jersey. So that's when we made the decision to move. I had never lived in a country outside of the US.
Wow.
So was a bit nervous, but very exciting. And when I moved to Australia, I started at Quantium. So analytics, retail, FMCG, banks. And honestly, it was a great introduction into the Australian market. Super intelligent, smart, hardworking people who work there. And man, they work with some incredible data sets. So I was thrilled to work there and start to build my network within Australia, within the analytics community.
Yes.
And I'm constantly in contact with all my former Quantium alumni, because they really are kind of just all over in Australia.
Incredible. Incredible.
Yeah.
And as you've been talking, we've got a few comments where Sherman says, good to know that the Aussie accent works overseas. That's really good. We got Sadia saying, really enjoying the talk. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Elisa.
Yeah, I thought I'd provide some other tips besides just, data science tips, just life tips.
Life.
Oh, I see a question. Who do I barrack for? Yes. So this kind of gets into my AFL experience. So when you start as an AFL employee, you get all the paperwork, what's your tax file number, where do you want to deposit your paycheck, all that stuff. And then they ask you, who do you barrack for? And it's very official. It's like on a form. And I was so, I was so nervous. I didn't know what to write. I did not grow up with AFL. My husband grew up in Melbourne, but he's totally useless. Like he knows zero about the AFL. Like when I was interviewing at the AFL, I had to Google like, what is the AFL? Like he could tell me nothing. So anyways, he's not here, so I could say all that. And so who I ended up choosing is Essendon.
Drum roll. Essendon. Bombers.
Bombers, Bombers from Peter. Yep. But that was made because there's a bit of a family connection. And I thought, if I'm going to work at the AFL, we're going to go to Footy Games. It'd be nice to go with family, right?
Yes.
With that said, now that I'm in, educated myself a bit more, I kind of have a second team. And I don't know if that's allowed in footy world. Like, right. I think it's quite controversial that I have two clubs, but Western Bulldogs.
Oh wow, nice. And how's the competition for your fandom between the Bombers and the Bulldogs? Yeah.
Very timely because they are playing tonight. Bombers versus Bulldogs. And so I thought maybe tonight could be the decider.
Perfect. It's all in the line.
But the reason I chose the Bulldogs, and I did a lot of research because I'm a researcher, is that they're a bit of an underdog. They're from Footscray. And by the way, Time Out voted Footscray the most up-and-coming city in the world. Apparently. Yeah. And they're red, white, and blue.
There you go. Right? Connection is strong.
Connection is strong.
Meant to be.
So I hope everyone on the call today will watch the game and you will know after the conclusion of the game who is a decider and who is my club that I barrack for.
I love it. I love it. Oh, gotta tune in to find out. Awesome. I see some questions coming in through the Q&A section where please keep putting your questions in there. We'll jump to them very shortly. But before, Elisa, I wanted to ask you about one of the things that became apparent in doing a bit of research on you and obviously in our communication leading up to this is you're passionate about data translators. So I wanted to ask you about your views. How do you define a data translator? Where do you see them making the most difference? Is it something that you recommend for people? How do you see the impact and the importance of the data translator?
Yeah, absolutely. So data translators for me are almost the first people that you need to be hiring. Me personally, I think throughout my career, I've always played that data translator role. But I feel like that term in itself only kind of became sexy in the past few years, and now it has a name. Yes. And actually, you can literally find a job title called the data translator. But a lot of organizations just aren't savvy enough. And there are certainly a few that are, but the majority of companies across industries are just not savvy enough to know exactly how to be applying data. And honestly are quite scared of it, and to the point where they just don't want to even touch it, and they just kind of relegate it to that data function team. So I think the beauty of data translators is that they make data approachable. And for me, that is so important. I mean, you can be the most technical data scientist in the world, but you have to be making your insights and the data that you're working with approachable. And that has, I've carried that with me, from my time at Avon, and gosh, more than ever at the AFL, where, you know what, the sports industry, as I'm coming to learn, they have a ton of data, right? So anything related to on-field analytics or kind of sports science analytics, they are very quantitative. But when it comes to understanding fans, club members, the data is not used strategically. It's used very operationally, so someone purchases a ticket, let's fill that ticket. Someone purchases a club membership, let's use data to fulfill that club membership.
Wow.
But it's not used to understand, who is my fan, who is my club member, how do I engage them in a personally relevant way? And most importantly, and I think especially for the AFL, is that they really need to start to understand how to use data to grow into new audiences. So look, my gosh, the footy fan base, especially in Victoria, is strong, but they are aging, and they're not going to be around forever, to be morbid. So it's really critical to, and especially looking at just the changing multicultural landscape of Australia, is to really understand who are those other audiences who would love to become footy people, but they just don't know how. It's not approachable to them.
Right.
So that's really kind of my remit coming into the AFL.
To specifically to help expand the audiences?
So that's well and truly in the remit of marketing, but to support them with data and insights to understand who their fans are, who their members are, and how to start to engage with new audiences like women, females, multicultural audiences, and actually the AFL viewership in markets like New South Wales and Queensland, not as strong as in Victoria.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, that's so interesting. So we'll start jumping into the many questions that we've got coming in. For anyone, put the questions in the Q&A section if you can. I got a message from Karen saying that they were having some problem accessing the Q&A section. In the Q&A section, we got about 12 questions now, and some in the chat as well. So we'll start on one of these in the Q&A section. Great. So the first question says, "Hey Lisa, amazing career journey. In the context of COVID-19 and a lack of fans in stadiums, how are the AFL using data to understand and inform decisions around supporter engagement?"
Yeah, that's a great question. So actually, I believe we had 22,000 fans in Perth yesterday.
Wow, that is great.
So obviously restrictions are eased there.
And something started coming back, right? There was a game in Newcastle last week.
That's right. So it's a bit controversial at the moment, but me personally, I think it's nice to see a bit of normalcy in fans being able to watch games in person. Mm-hmm. But right now, I mean, I guess really what the AFL has gone through in the past, how many months now since COVID started, it's been just laser focused on just getting the game back on.
Yes.
So as much as we'd like to do kind of on the side to understand our audiences and fans, at this point, it's about we need to get the game back on and be totally agile. As you know, all Victorian clubs have been moved to Queensland. So it's been a very, very difficult journey for the AFL. But man, what I'm seeing is that this organization has almost been made for these types of moments. Mm-hmm. They are able to mobilize so quickly. When you think about it, hundreds and hundreds of players and their families, literally moving them across the country amidst a global pandemic is pretty incredible.
Right. Yeah. The operation there.
The operations is incredible. Yeah.
Yeah. And something that, from the outside, you wouldn't think about it as you're enjoying the sports, as you're enjoying the spectacle. But yeah, such an important part. Really, really amazing. Another question we have here from Jeremy, and actually I just turned on the upvoting on questions. So if you see a question that you like, you can give it a thumbs up, and then those questions will start to bubble up towards the top of the Q&A section. The question from Jeremy is, 5 years from now, what sorts of questions do you think the AFL will be able to answer then that they're not answering now? So this goes to like the long-term strategic work, what the data foundations that you're putting in place, what's that leading to?
Yeah, that's actually a great question. So as I said, as I've started, and I only started in October of last year, and also to be fully transparent. So as I mentioned, the AFL is going through some incredible times. So majority of AFL House has actually been stood down. So I think some of you may know that, including myself and my team, right? So to be fully transparent, we are currently stood down, unfortunately, until the end of the season. But with that said, all of us are still fully connected with kind of the operations and what's happening. Mm-hmm. So back to your question. So since I started in October till March, my remit was really about kind of setting up the foundations for customer data. And man, AFL have a lot of data. Mm-hmm. We can kind of go into that separately, but in terms of just investing in just a new data warehouse and migrating to the cloud, that was full and truly underway, and then COVID hit, so we had to take a pause. But really where I see this all moving in 5 years, and where I would love to see this all moving in 5 years, is not to have such silos. So my remit and my team look across customer and fan data, and there's a whole other footy department that's looking at on-field analytics, sports science. I would love for those worlds to merge. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we can start answering questions like, what are the types of dynamics in the game that increase fan engagement? What are the types of games or dynamics that, this type of fan likes to see versus another type of fan likes to see? So I would love to start to see some of those two worlds collide. And I think some sports leagues in the US and even in Europe are starting to do this, but at AFL, not yet.
Yeah, interesting. Good marker for the future. Another question, one from James says, champion data release far more data to the clubs than what is released to the public, which frustrates data scientists like us. Is there any opportunity for more data to be publicly released?
Yes. So champion data does collect and house all of AFL game data. Champion data is kind of partially owned by the AFL as well. But I know that the champion data team are trying to do more with the community. And actually, right before COVID hit, we were looking into potentially putting on a bit of a AFL hackathon in partnership with champion data. So hopefully after all of this kind of comes to an end, we can put that out in market again.
Love it. That'd be great. Next question is from Robert, asking about engagement of AFLW. Whether there could be more data available, for example, match reports sometimes are hard to find. Some of the data maybe have been dropped from the website. Is there any update or any work there being done that you couldn't share?
Yeah, absolutely. So working on AFLW was kind of my first, data project, if you will. So I started in October. AFLW season kicked off in the new year. But to your point, to the panel or the question, there's far less data available around AFLW. But with that said, related to any kind of match level statistics, that should be all available. My challenge and what I'm working on is to try to get more data and insights around the AFLW fan. And that knowledge base, we're kind of just starting to build at the AFL.
Amazing. That is incredible. We've got a really good question from Taz Tudor. Hey, mate. He asked about the link between marketing and the technical data scientists. How many businesses do this well? What does it take, do you think, to do this well, to be able to leverage the two sides between the marketing side and the technical data science?
Yeah, I mean, most of my experience has been in the FMCG and retail space. I think the company, at least the companies that I've worked in, do this really well. And I think because they are kind of direct-to-consumer businesses, you know. In other industries, for example, the AFL, I think it is still pretty siloed. And I think that is also the bridge that I'm trying to build, which is what is marketing doing? And everything that we're doing in the data space in terms of understanding our customer from a data and analytics perspective needs to 100% tie into marketing's objectives. So we're getting there, but it's that connection is not always there. But really, as data professionals, it's our duty to build those connections and forge them.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, it's relatively early days for you at the AFL. I think it's under a year. So obviously,
yes.
There is and there will always be a hunger from the fans to find out more. So it's great to hear that you're already that's already in the cards, already in the plans, and that's exactly where you're going. That is fantastic. We get a question from Jeremy asking what sorts of methods, models, techniques do you find you need to train new recruits on? Or another way to ask it is, what skills are people underdeveloped in?
Yeah, so so my data and analytics team at the AFL, we're a small but lean and powerful team. So we're about a team of 6 or 7. Almost my entire team was there before I started. There was somewhat of a data function. It was probably more of a reporting function. So a lot of the team members on my team had kind of been there, not necessarily started from a pure data or analytics space. What I had to do, because I wanted to start getting some advanced analytic trials in place at the AFL, so a lot of that expertise and skill set, I had to kind of get consultants or contractors in. So for me, in these early days of the data and analytics evolution at the AFL, for me, it's actually just looking for really curious people. I think if you're a fan of footy, that definitely helps. But again, full transparency, I was not. I'm probably the last person that you want to talk to about footy. So again, it's just back to that curiosity, that hunger. And I think at the AFL, and I think it's very much embedded in the culture, is that you have to be approachable and you have to make data approachable. So those are the types of things I'm looking at. Once we get further along our evolution, I would love to have a team of data scientists and we could be building our own models in-house, but we're just not there yet that I could make the business case to hire them full-time.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I'm sure that there's a lot of people that would be very keen to come in and help find any ways that, people might be even willing to volunteer their time if they're passionate enough. Is there any channel that people can go through in order to show their interest to be able to help on the data front for AFL?
Yeah, I mean, certainly we do get a lot of interest and demand. For me, again, I'm just trying to start small, get in the proof points, prove the value to the business, and then I'll go big and wide and be shouting from the rooftops. But because this is such a new capability, I'm starting small. But I do get a lot of people reach out to me interested working there. So just connect with me on LinkedIn. If you have some great ideas, just reach out.
Amazing. And and there might be something that we can do through Data Science Melbourne, that there might be passionate people that want to help through a datathon. I know that we are close on time, so I'll ask you one last question from here, and then I've got one that I want to ask you about, looking back on your career. But here it says, do you use Agile practices in analytics delivery at the AFL? And if so, do you have any guidelines around how to define a minimum viable product? What would be okay or enough for a first release if you have iterative releases done over time?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say the first project that I've worked on was building membership churn models. So we work as a bit of a center of excellence shared practice with each of the 18 clubs. So again, one of the first proof points I wanted to build with the data that we had in-house was, what are the factors or the causals that would drive a member to churn or cancel their membership? Because obviously this is a huge revenue driver for clubs. So one of the first projects we did, and again, it's just been a bit of a proof point. I was able to recruit a few of the clubs to come on the trial, and it was kind of a quick delivery. Again, I wish I was at the point where this was kind of BAU in practice and we're using Agile methods to deliver these, but we're just, again, starting the evolution. And again, I'm just building the demand and the hunger.
Yeah, definitely. And I wanted to ask you, with everything that you've done in your career, what are you most proud of that you've achieved? Tough question, I know.
Yeah. I think I would answer that question very differently at obviously different points of my career. I would say right now it's absolutely along the lines of people development. So developing not only kind of juniors starting out in the career, but I think what brings me the most satisfaction and joy is when I could develop other leaders. First time kind of starting to manage people and teams, as you know, and as many people know, it's very, very daunting. So if I can help people do that, that really makes me really excited. And as I reflect back on the past few years, I think I've been able to do that. So I would say, yeah, I think that's what I'm the most proud of.
That's amazing. And where do you think people need the most help in becoming a leader or becoming a good leader? What do you think are some of the traits that would make them successful as a leader, or things that you've been able to help others with?
Yeah, I would say it's a combination of two very opposing things. One is humility. So you're a leader, but actually you're really a servant to your team. And second is just being confident in yourself and your knowledge, and really being the leader in your team and understanding that they look up to you and you need to be confident in your knowledge.
You do. Sorry, there we go. And do you feel that people are confident, that they do feel that that they can lead the team, that they can stand sort of in front of everyone and help them get to a shared vision? Do you see that as a key part of where people need help in their leadership?
Yeah, and I think a lot of people have the misnomer or the belief that being a leader means you're standing up in front of a big team and you're shouting orders and that kind of vision or view of a leader. But I guess my personal approach is that I'm very much a lead from behind. And once I truly understand the strengths of each of my team members, I'm going to lead them from behind and just be pushing them and being their biggest cheerleader. So I think there are different types of leadership styles, and people need to embrace that and not to try to fit a mold. I'm seeing you from many different angles, Felipe.
No, right? It's because I got a notification from my computer that it said it was gonna restart out of the blue. It said it was like, okay, we have a mandated restart. I actually just messaged the head of IT and I was like, mate, you need to stop this. Apparently it's a security patch. So before,
or at least give you the heads up. And I think he's left us. And he's back.
And there we go. That's exactly what just happened. Oh, how crazy, right? I was like,
You need to have a word with someone about that.
I know, right? So we're doing actually internal net promoter scores, where all of the teams, we send net promoter scores for all the other areas to evaluate each area, and so yeah, I'm gonna be asking for their next net promoter score survey, so I can share my my thoughts there.
I love all your viewers trying to like troubleshoot for you.
I know, right? It's I love it. Thank you. Yeah, so much for the support. I was the same. I was like, how is this even a thing? Like, how is it even possible? So apparently it's a security security issue, security patch for a big bug.
Got it. Okay, there you go.
I know, right? So yeah, I am. Look at this. I am going to show you my computer there working on updates. Terrible.
Working so hard.
Terrible. So what are you most excited about that you're working on at the AFL? What is there anything that's coming up ahead that you can share? Something that's either occupying your mind, something that you're really looking forward to. Obviously, things that you can share.
100%. So what am I really excited about was our rebuild of our entire data warehouse and migrating to cloud from on-prem. So as I mentioned, we just embarked on that project. And I mean, how many times in your career can you build that from scratch? Right? Most of the time you'll start a company and you'll be working with legacy systems.
Yep.
Like, who built this? What were they thinking? Yep. I'm building the legacy, so 10 years from now, people will be like, who's the idiot who built this? So it's been incredible. And I guess just the way we're approaching it makes total sense, but I don't think how it's been done previously, which is we've been talking to each of the different business units within the AFL, understand what are their daily processes, what kind of questions they need to be answered on a weekly basis, monthly, long-term strategic, and we're building the data model and the data warehouse around that.
Amazing.
Incredible, right? So it's not just about led by data source or data feed and just jamming it all in. We're centering it around how the business operates. So again, we had just embarked on that project before COVID hit, but once we get back, we'll be straight back on it, and I'll have a brand new, sparkly, fresh data warehouse to work with in the new year.
Amazing. And then obviously, I think, does that highlight the importance of the data translators to essentially help people get excited, want to be involved in data, see the benefit of it, and want to tip in essentially their ideas into what this new capability is going to be for the organization. How have you found that part of the journey?
Yeah, I mean, I'm so excited for kind of the junior members on my team to be part of this process from the beginning, right? Because, starting out, you're normally in data science, you're normally seeing kind of the tip of the iceberg, right? The data inputs into the model outputs, but you rarely do you get to see kind of underneath the hood of the data. Mm-hmm. So it's an incredible experience for them to be seeing this and being able to design it and model it based on how the business operates. It's such a simple thing, but not what happens.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And do you feel the pressure of that this is going to be looked back as legacy in 10 years? The pressure of getting it right. How are you handling that?
A little bit of pressure, but what am I going to do? That's person 10 years from now problem to deal with, not mine.
I love it. That's the right attitude. And obviously, because I am a bit of a nerd, I do have to ask you, what type of technologies and infrastructures are you either using or looking at for the new capability build?
Yeah, so we're going with Snowflake. So it was an extensive RFP process looking at all the big players, but we loved Snowflake for the easy scalability. But again, also because the AFL play a bit of a center of excellence, we're going to be able to have to share data with clubs in a secure and easy way. And Snowflake has that data share capability inbuilt.
Yes.
So that was also a big driver. Simultaneously, we already have kind of Tableau in-house, and we're also in market for a CRM tool as well. So it's crazy, but this whole stack is kind of going in at the same time. But the beauty is Snowflake speaks to Tableau, Snowflake speaks to Salesforce. Actually, they're all kind of owned by Salesforce, aren't they?
There's a lot of investment there, and the synergies are incredible. That's basically the stack that we use at my work. I work in a healthcare, it's a healthcare AI company, and we literally have Snowflake, Tableau, and then Salesforce. We use the healthcare version of Salesforce, which is Health Cloud. And really good integration, and I've been really impressed with Snowflake actually.
Oh, we're definitely going to have to chat post this. I would love to hear experience with the full stack in play.
Yeah, definitely. Love it.
We're also playing, dabbling in an automated machine learning platform. So I may be jumping the gun a little bit, but a company called Data Robot. So I guess I'm just future proofing, if I never have kind of, full-time data scientists in-house, could a machine learning platform that'd be pretty self-sufficient replace that? So anyways, just to test. I don't think that'll be ever the case because you always need that art, but it's been fun to play with their tool.
Right. Yeah. Well, we looked at it as well. Looked at Data Robot and H2O, which is like the other one. And H2O has a free or an open source version as well, which was great. So we did a trial with that as well, and in some of the platforms. So we looked at SageMaker on AWS and looked at their sort of AutoML functionality, and also on Databricks we've been testing that too. So it sounds like we're sort of in similar places in the journey. We're also sort of like, should we go for the big guys AutoML or not? And whether some of the other tools can do some or part of that job. Really exciting times. And how do you guys prioritize projects and where to focus your time with so many opportunities, and sort of like the world is your oyster with being at the AFL? How do you guys prioritize what to focus your analytics efforts on?
Yeah, for me, when I started, it was I just listened. So I met with kind of key executives within the business. I spoke to a lot of different people at clubs, and it seemed like membership churn and understanding membership customers was a pretty big use case. So that was when I was like, churn models, we can do this. So that was kind of the first area for me. But simultaneously, I want to do a bit of R&D and start to look ahead. So that whole concept of bringing in the world of kind of customer analytics and sports analytics, I would love to start playing kind of in that space.
That's incredible. How does that combination, or how would that combination look like? My understanding from past conversations on the podcast, we had people that work in soccer teams, in Formula One, and the sense that I've got is that the two sides are generally quite separate, sort of the sports side and kind of like the business analytics, or the sports analytics and the business analytics are maybe historically quite separate, but it'll definitely come a time where they come together. How do you see that happening? What would be how would they come together?
Yeah, I mean, one of the questions that's always kind of asked, and I think people have a lot of instinct or gut around it, but yeah, what are the dynamics of a game that really would drive viewership and engagement? So more people tuning in on TV, more people tuning in on live stream. I think it's a well-known fact that the closer the games are in terms of margin, the more exciting it is.
Yes.
If it's a total blowout, people are like, let's turn it off. So that's a pretty well-known fact. But I think there are also a lot of nuances within the game, whether intended or not intended, that can drive spikes in viewership and engagement. So to bring a bit of science behind that. And I also think it's a merging of talent. So obviously super passionate and talented people on the sports analytics side, and same on the customer analytics side. I just feel like there'd be so much benefit by starting to cross-pollinate, and how can we learn from each other?
Yes, and how's the viewership in other parts of the world? My sort of anecdotal sense is that it's increasing, that the popularity of AFL is increasing at a global level and increasing outside of Australia. Is that the sense that you have internally? Is that right?
I mean, I think there is a steady global viewership just from all the Aussie expats living around the world. But I do know that, you know, in the US, because there has been total lack of sport during COVID, some AFL games were broadcast on ESPN too. So I've been like looking at some of like the Twitter commentary and all of that, but just Americans are like, I don't get the rules. Like, but it's still so novel. So I would love to see AFL and the viewing of footy kind of go around the world, because it's an incredible game, and it really does bring people together.
It definitely is. Yeah, I came from a soccer nation in South America, and you know, at the beginning I was the same. I didn't understand AFL at all, and I definitely grew to love it. And yeah, the excitement and the fast pace is amazing.
That's right.
Elisa, I want to thank you so much for your time, for sharing your insights, for your journey. I'm so impressed with everything that you've done, everything that you're doing now, and a lot of the comments here are thanking you as well. Again, thank you so much for sharing your story, your insights, your perspectives with us. Thank you for your time, and yeah, please keep doing the good work. The people are eager to see your work and excited that you're doing it.
Perfect, Felipe. It's been an absolute pleasure, and maybe we'll do this again in Spanish.
I love it. Let's do it. We'll book it in. Thank you so much. Take care. Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
You enjoyed it. Have a good Friday. Bye.